This is Yushin Gilliard, and he's the commander of the male-only human forces that's tasked to defend their lands from the rampaging demonic female elves nation. Unfortunately for the humans, they find themselves constantly on the retreat as they are unable to defend their territory against the elves who want to turn them all into seed extraction slaves using their rice cakes. Regardless, to save his army from utter destruction while they retreat, Gilliard becomes the Chad every man wants to be as he decides to take on the entire army of girls by himself. However, his gallant efforts to save his bros end in him getting captured by the elves with a single net, as there were too many for him to battle alone. It's then revealed that Gilliard is actually pretty famous amongst the elves, due to him previously being the only man to defeat their warrior chief in battle in a 1 versus 1. As such, the girls start surrounding a captured Gilliard, where they all randomly start salivating due to them being unable to resist Gilliard's aura, causing them all to crave his hidden horse. But before they could unleash the true wrath of his legendary nether dragon, Gilliard summoned some lightning through his sword in an attempt to escape. With Gilliard now using all of his might to attempt the escape, he ultimately fails as the elves around him start laughing at him, knowing that they used a special net made specifically for him. Nonetheless, the elves continued marching towards him, but then Gilliard noticed the closer they got to him, the more pieces of armor the elves unequipped and dropped on the ground, while each one looked super ready to jump and tame his horse. However, right before they fully close the gap between our boy and his net, Gilliard is able to somehow finally cut through the magic barrier by infusing his sword with even more power than before. As such, our boy breaks free and instantly takes the opportunity to charge towards the closest elf, as she's totally left unprotected without any armor. Now totally defenseless, the girl is left standing still, absolutely frozen, as no one expected our boy to ever break free from the magic barrier. Nevertheless, our Sigma male wastes no time, and upon closing the gap between him and the closest elf, he targets her heart to make sure it's a single finishing blow. Unfortunately, right as he's about to finish delivering the blow, something last second interfered by hitting his sword, causing him to totally miss whilst also cracking his sword in half. It's then revealed that the culprit behind the devastating blow to his sword came from some mystical elf archers arriving as reinforcements. Now that our boy's weapon has been rendered useless, and with more elves arriving, the girls forcibly command Gilliard to throw away his broken weapon, as it's time for his warrior sausage to be manually inspected. Meanwhile, the first elf warrior our boy originally charged towards is left still shaking on the ground, and not because she was almost obliterated by Gilliard, but because she couldn't understand why a human tries so hard to resist the creamy papayas left in front of him. Regardless, as our boy gets recaptured by the sussy demonic elves, Gilliard starts smiling, knowing that he was able to buy enough time for the rest of his army to escape successfully from the battlefield. Shortly after, our Mega Chad finds himself finally awake after getting knocked unconscious, so the elves could transport him into a carriage without much of a fight. Inside the carriage, Gilliard learns that he has his own personal guard to make sure he has no chance of escaping this time, but the elf keeps insulting him. She then continues on by revealing that she's placed a magical lock on him to prevent him from even thinking about escaping, as the special lock constantly siphons all of his energy and mana. Eventually, without much energy, our boy passes out until he gets awoken by his guard, ordering him to not do anything funny while she's gone, as she has to go and make sure the new captives play nice. After the guard gets out of the carriage, we discover that at least another 100 men have been captured by a bunch of elves who happen to have a wide array of donuts and rice cakes for all to see. Nonetheless, the elves gather the rest of the men around and reveal to them that every single one will be sold at an auction in a nearby town. They are then forced with the harsh reality that every single one in the future will start cosplaying a factory only meant to be used for their Costco hot dogs, as it allows the elves to extract their seeds for their next generation. Now fast forward back inside the carriage containing Gilliard. His guard comes back in to join him, only for her to yell at him to stop staring at her. It then turns out that since our boy can't really do anything else while stuck to his seat, he has decided to fight back through his only means available, and that's by using his piercing gaze, as bro really does not want to experience a rice cake smashing right now. Luckily for Gilliard, his plan somehow works, as he's able to actually force the guard into leaving the carriage, but she starts pretending she's only leaving for a moment due to other duties she has to attend to. Now with his personal guard out of the equation for a few moments, our boy is finally alone again, giving him a chance to figure out how to escape, but he gets distracted as he hears other men crying outside. But since Gilliard has barely any time to waste before he gets sent closer to the capital city of the Elves, he decides to just brute force his way out of his predicament. However, even with all his energy he could muster spent up in one burst, he's unable to even make a single progress towards his freedom, as not a single chain budged from his efforts. Now that our boy knows he's basically screwed unless some kind of miracle happens, he transfers his gaze outside the window so he's able to confirm using the mountain range outside that they are indeed heading towards the capital of the Elves. We then learn from Gilliard that the only reason the Elves continue to invade their kingdom is because 80% of the Elves' population are all women, so to fix their ratio, they have to plunder the nation of Valuas in search for men. Regardless, as our boy continues to try his hardest to overpower the lock by using his overcharge skill, he reveals the fact that the Elves also divide each man into grades depending on how potent and strong their extracted seeds could be. And since he's a general of the kingdom, he knows he's doomed as he will get placed in the S-tier rank, making him one of the most sought banana trees on the planet. Suddenly, as he tries to listen on what's going on outside his carriage, his door swings wide open where he gets greeted by his crying personal guard and two other elves accompanying her looking super angry for no apparent reason. Initially, he thought he got caught sneaking a peek at his personal guard's undies due to his curiosity, getting the better of him earlier, so our boy prepares for the worst. However, it turns out that the two girls accompanying his personal guard, named Hana, are here to teach him a lesson for making Hana cry, so the first girl screams at him, telling him his banana tree plantation is about to get absolutely destroyed. As she transforms into her rice cake smashing form, she lets Gilliard know that all three of them will take turns to make sure his banana tree plantation will turn into a fully dried up banana tree. Luckily for our boy though, right before the first elf starts her relentless attack upon his banana tree plantation, the second elf stops her and tells her to wait as they realize Gilliard is a virgin banana tree. With the sudden revelation bestowed upon him, Gilliard wonders how the heck the red-haired elf knew, so he ends up asking her how she found out. The elf then turned around looking a little bit flustered, so she responds by telling him he can speak up if she's wrong since she was given some powers to be able to tell from a mile away. With Gilliard now forced to look down in defeat while saying nothing, the elf smiles as it confirms to her that he's actually superbly inexperienced even though he's the renowned general of the Eastern Front. Upon successfully learning that Gilliard has never popped a cherry blast cola before in his life, all the girls start jumping up and down in jubilation since they can now sell Gilliard for twice the market value. As such, the red-haired elf sternly reminds the other savages to make sure they don't even think about doing anything to our boy, as they don't want his price to crash to oblivion. And since Gilliard is the first man to defeat the warrior chief Ardena in battle, his price will balloon even more once those interested find out he's up for auction. Nonetheless, they also figure if they want to do anything sussy with him, then they'll have to carefully remove the lock absorbing his powers so it gives Bro a chance to take them out, which they aren't willing to risk. As such, the girls end up leaving our boy alone and proceed to keep him locked inside his carriage, but since all of them were already ready to rumble up some banana tree plantations, they end up choosing someone else to release their frustrations. We then fast forward to when Gilliard falls asleep after giving up as he's got nothing else to do, but he ends up dreaming someone has come to save him. After getting smacked and scolded for sleeping, it dawns on him that he isn't even dreaming, as his aide, named Isana, has actually come through like the Clutch King to save him. It's then revealed that Isana has somehow found the key to his lock that's stopping him from activating his true powers, but Gilliard can only wonder how the heck he got away, as he was also taken in as prisoner. Without going into further detail, Isana tells our boy he has his ways since he's apparently comparatively more handsome than him, so all he needed to do was make an elf drop the soap. After successfully unlocking the commander with his stolen keys, Isana winks at our boy as he continues teasing him about how Gilliard can't even talk to a woman by himself. Although Gilliard has no skills in regards to girls, he's able to make Isana shut up after reminding him about how he ran away as soon as his first battle went underway. Nevertheless, after their quick and short reunion, Gilliard learns from Isana that the elves have let their guard down and now is the time for them to strike if they want any hope of escaping. Meanwhile, after putting her armor back on, Hana wonders where Isana went since she was just busy trying to extract some banana tree seeds from him literally a few seconds ago, and now she can't even find him anywhere. Out of nowhere, she notices both Gilliard and Isana making a mad dash forward with the corner of her eye. At the same time, the other elves start noticing a bunch of men also got freed, so they all simultaneously whip out their swords. Unfortunately, it's too late for that. As soon as the angry elf from earlier unsheathed her sword, our boy instantly appears in front of her and uses his chains to swiftly destroy her sword in half. Gilliard then follows up with a devastating combo by grabbing her donuts and sending her straight to the ground, leaving her totally dazed. Mere seconds later, Isana, like a true bro, risks his life to steal a sword from a nearby elf, only for him to throw it towards his general, as he knows it'll allow Gilliard to fully release his true powers and the chance to fully break out of his restraints. And that's exactly what happens, and upon the release of his abilities, the entire battlefield gets illuminated with lightning signaling that the time of reckoning for elves is about to come. Although the elves are totally outnumbered after reinforcements moved on to another outpost, the girls refused to retreat as they still had some sense of pride. Instead, they decided to focus all their firepower towards our boy. It's a smart move to make since the rest of the humans will stand no chance against the elves if Gilliard falls. However, our boy is ready to complete his business as he starts channeling his wind breathing technique. After quickly powering up for a few seconds, he squats down and places his fist on the ground, allowing for lightning to course through his body and into the earth. And within a blink of an eye, he's able to land a chain lightning attack which allows him to instantly down multiple elves. Gilliard then combos his chain lightning into himself as he absorbs his ultimate power, allowing him to quickly dash and defeat more nearby sussy elves that dared to even look at his direction. Shortly after, droves of elves instantly fall to the ground as Bro became the embodiment of the 69th Raikage, causing his men to erupt in cheers as the tide is quickly turning. Suddenly, as the number of elves continue to diminish from the battlefield, a booming shout echoes throughout the forest, urging the elves to continue on fighting. Afterwards, a super shining and glowing elf comes out of nowhere with a sword in hand, but we already know she means business as we can't even see who it is. As such, all slimmer of hope begin to get snatched away by the second from Gilliard and the boys as he noticed too late that his men behind him got absolutely ganked and spanked by a special team of elves. It's then revealed that the mysterious elf happens to be no other than the warrior chief Ardina, who's accompanied by an elite army and an advisor that looks like a sussy female Gajiel from Fairy Tale. We also learn that Ardina got a hard rock for him as Bro clapped the living out of her during their last battle, causing Ardina to be decommissioned from the Helenwood Knights, as she had to go back to the capital to tend to her wounds. So now the boys are screwed as she wants her revenge, and it looks like she's going to get it, so Izana starts to blame Gilliard for getting Ardina to be so thirsty for vengeance. However, our boy is still the commander of the human forces, so he ain't no wimp, and he ain't going to back out when things look tough. So Bro ends up powering up like a Pokemon ready to evolve into their final form. But before he's able to hit level 6 to charge up another ultimate attack, Ardina quickly teleports in front of him to cancel his awakening transformation. Ardina then informs him that if he tries becoming Goku right now, then his entire leftover force will be sent into another dimension, unless he drops his weapon right now. As such, Gilliard drops his weapon as he's a nice guy, whilst angrily yelling to Ardina that bros are forever, and fresh elf papayas are just temporary pleasure. In the end, Bro gets caught in the wrong cuffing season as it's still not winter yet, so he ends up getting the bad cuffs they put on your hand instead. Regardless, our boy falls to the ground as prisoner, and with his last words, he looks back and tells Ardina that he knew that all elves were always after the same thing, money and power. Ardina then stays silent without saying back a single word back to Gilliard, but then she starts looking like a sussy bacca once he was finally out of fight. However, right before our boy disappeared into the wagon meant to head directly towards the sussy elf gulags, Izana comes out of nowhere, whilst yelling at the top of his lungs that him and the boys will never let him get captured. Unfortunately for Izana though, he gets one punch manned in mere seconds, so the girls end up not letting him cook as he fell to the ground like a single broken hickory stick. Bro then opens his eyes after getting winded harder than a 300-pound man walking down a flight of stairs where Izana locks eyes with a pink-haired elf looking like she's about to Tiger King him. No one then says a thing, nor does a man come to his rescue as every single one left standing were also found captured and neutralized, so they could only watch on. Izana then closes his eyes again as he knows the end is near, so the girl readies her weapon to do some early pumpkin carving for Halloween. Regardless, right before Izana met his sussy demise, our boy couldn't hold back, so he screams Izana's name and attempts to power up to break free from his magical restraints. But before Gilliard is able to do something, the female Iron Dragon Slayer pulls out the Nene to stop him from charging forward. In doing so, she accidentally rips apart a piece of his armor due to her brute strength, revealing an unexpected sacred symbol found on Gilliard's left shoulder blade. Ardina and all the elves are instantly shocked, so they shift all attention over to him as they can't believe this dude really be hiding a sacred symbol called a stigma. As such, Ardina swiftly comes to the rescue of Izana right before he became fast food, where she orders the elves to stop as they have no authority to do as they please in the land of the Reveria elves. And so Izana luckily gets to live another day, all thanks to the warrior chief noticing that Gilliard has a stigma called the Inspection Domain's Stigma. She also ends up taking over the human and elf exchange, ordering every elf previously assigned to Gilliard's convoy that he and the boys are now personally part of her purview, so she will ultimately take over here. And with the turntables turning right in front of a confused Gilliard, Ardina dismisses everyone and walks away like a true Stacy. Fast forward a few days later, the captured men finally reach their destination as they personally got dragged and transported straight to the city of Pamplona, where each one is about to get auctioned off to a bunch of elf girls. Now that doesn't sound too bad, and some of the dudes within Gilliard's group gave up being rescued, so they end up hoping and praying that they would get bought by a bombshell of an elf. As such, all the men are forced to put on a bunch of spiffy clothes to slightly increase their base value at the auction, giving time to Gilliard and Izana to catch up and to wish each other their best as they hope to see each other in the future. The two bros then give each other a fist bump, totally hopeful that they will meet each other again, as both know their paths will end here since there's no way for them to escape. Mere moments later, as Izana finds himself tied to a chair in an unfamiliar room, he hears two elves straight up destroy the door in front of him, where he finds out that Hana has reappeared to claim her prize. Hana then goes crazy as she claims that blonde ones are the rarest, and she just wants a quick taste again before ultimately deciding if he's worth it to take back to her village. As such, the sussy tables turn, where Izana instantly finds himself brought to the ground. But this time, Hana has fully immersed herself in invisible clothes, ready to do some rice cake smashing as she's been waiting patiently all this time. And within a blink of his eye, Hana activates her Roadrunner skills as she straight up skillfully disarmed his armor and sent it flying across the room within a single second. Hana then decides to mount her brand new 9,000 horsepower car underneath her, causing the other elf in the room to get jealous of her. So she ends up joining in on the race by quickly disarming her own set of armor. At the same time, the girls begin to fight each other as they don't want to equally share Izana, since it's not fair that only one can experience rice cake smashing, while the other only gets to experience the Spider-Man technique. Eventually, the two stop fighting as Hana convinces the other elf to let her go first, since they can take turns looking out for anyone trying to get in, giving them unlimited time to tame the human's wild horse. Nevertheless, Hana is the first one to experience Isana's epic spaceship as she sends him on a mission to continually activate his space boosters straight into her rocket. Eventually, Hana goes overboard as Isana's spaceship has sent her into overdrive, causing her to totally forget that she's not supposed to explode his rocket before the other elf gets their turn, but she's too deep into her sussy evolution. As such, the blondie elf quickly runs back into the room, yelling at Isana to make sure to not hit his finish line yet, since she could feel intense shockwaves all the way outside the room. She then pulls out a powerless Hana from Isana's spaceship, shoving her straight into the floor, trying her best to make sure she gets to have her own activity, as well as she clearly does not want to get left out. In the end, Izana sends his team rocket blasting off again straight into the other elf's mooncakes, causing Hana to be shocked in awe as she's never ever seen this side of her before. Nonetheless, after getting his spaceship to splurge in multiple pieces inside their asteroids, Bro passes out from the sheer intense pressure of their narrow papayas, causing him to be dragged back to his seat, still unconscious. Meanwhile, thousands of elves are busy trying to outbid each other by the millions on the main stage of the auction, since it's now turned for the most prized human in the realm to be sold. Someone then bids a whopping 50 million Big Macs, an insane record high that was previously only a couple thousand, where it's also surprisingly revealed that the person who dropped the bag on him is the warrior chief Ardana herself. With Ardana winning the bid, a magically infused collar is placed on our boy, giving him the mark that he was sold to Ardina. Ro then tries to weasel himself out of the collar to no avail, as he knows that the magical collar gives the owner the ability to instantly destroy him whenever and wherever they want. Luckily for him though, Ardana is actually super nice, so she arranged for the Santander family to buy out all his men, giving him the opportunity to see his men at least a couple times a year. He then tries to thank her for her generosity by being a supreme sussy baka inside a wagon, so Ardina ends up warning him to not come near her or else she's going to personally send him to perish. However, our boy has no chill at all even after being sternly warned so many times, so he decides to poke the Ardina bear by swiftly pinching her belly area as she had no armor protecting it, causing her to squeal. Meanwhile, the wagon driver up front is seen smiling ear to ear as she's enjoying the fresh mood change of Ardina, where she ends up thinking to herself that the two sound like a prime couple to end up dating. Regardless, as the two continue their ride back to Ardana's village, she ends up revealing the fact that the reason she dropped 50 on him is because she wants him to personally teach skills to her younger sister. And since he's a human with superb powers with no innate ability to handle huge amounts of mana, she believes our boy is the key to empower her elf sister, since she can't handle mana. Nevertheless, upon finally arriving at their destination, an elf with a larger personality than Ardina comes rushing to their wagon, who's revealed to be named Scarlet. She then shoves her double personalities straight in front of Ardana's, where she ends up making a comment of how Ardana finally bought someone to relieve her very sussy desires, causing our boy to shudder in fear.